Behind the Shades.
When I discovered that I was in a relationship that you can consider to be emotionally abusive, it kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Because here I am, probably my arrogance, right? This can't happen to me. I'm too strong for this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize it creeps up on you like a thief in the night, right?
Yeah.
You look around, you're like, me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going through this. When it was discovered that you're being emotionally treated this way, there's two affairs, and now you want to transition out
Mm-hmm.
of that situation. Did you find it difficult to let go physically, or is it harder to let go maybe emotionally?
It was a little bit of both. So, we went through back in 2015, we went through couples therapy together. He said the affairs were a mistake and all of this. And again, at that time, I didn't recognize what was going on around me because very similar to you, like I never saw myself as, oh, I'm that girl that's going to wind up in an emotionally abusive marriage. Well, I also never saw myself as that girl who would stay if someone cheats. And I did wind up staying in my head, rationalizing. I stayed for the kids. I highly discourage if you're in a relationship and you're staying for the kids, you are doing, and I did more damage to my kids than if I had left. Because what you are doing is modeling to them a relationship that they are going to repeat later in life. And so if you're in something that is unhealthy and your only reason for staying is the kids, that is not good enough. But at the time, I rationalized, and we as humans are so good at rationalizing the shit out of whatever we want to have happen, right? So I still loved my husband. I thought he loved me. I loved my kids. I loved everything, So I was very good at rationalizing in my head, I'm going to stay in this situation. He's sorry about the affairs. We're going to go to therapy. We're going to go to this recovery program together. This was when I first had my first exposure to therapy, and it was the worst experience with therapy. And I actually wound up not going to therapy for a couple of years after that. I didn't go back until 2017, because my therapist at that time, all she wanted to do was give me worksheets and say, well, you need to try harder, or those kinds of comments that were just very dismissive and not actually addressing anything as far as what I could do to help myself and help understand what I was going through and help my emotions. It was just like, do this worksheet and then we'll talk about it, I guess, next time. Kind of very, very dismissive. I think I went to her like 4 or 5 times, really only a handful of times. And then I was like, wow, therapy is really shitty. I'm not going back. Because I thought, what a therapist is a therapist is a therapist. And the reality is that that's not true.
Was there a type of help that you were wishing that you had? Maybe not from this person, but from someone else during that time?
So we also went through couples therapy, and I actually really liked couples therapy. The reason we didn't continue with couples therapy is that my ex, and he literally said this, I am not making this up. He said, we're not going to therapy anymore because I just can't win. And that was it. We stopped going. You can't force someone to go to therapy. I tried. You can't force someone to go to therapy. You can't force them to work through whatever they don't want to work through. If they don't want to do the work, they're not going to do the work. So I really enjoyed the couples therapy. We did also do an affair recovery program. It was like emergency marital something or other, which was an online program. And it was specifically for couples who were going through betrayal and infidelity recovery. And I did enjoy that. I thought that they gave us a lot of space to connect with other couples who were going through something similar. I thought that that was really good. And we did go through that. Eventually he decided he didn't want to do that work either though. So
Sometimes it's just difficult to be told what you're doing is wrong.
yeah.
But it's better to hear it from someone that is neutral. Like the therapist doesn't have any incentive to make something up.
Right.
Right. Despite the bad experience that you may have or the bad experience that he may have, it's someone saying that, hey, if the approach is right, not someone that's just throwing out worksheets like they're dollars at a gentleman's club, right? But
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we're helping them out. We're saying that, hey, if you guys want to fix this, work needs to be done on both sides.
Absolutely.
But one thing I want to ask you, if we flash forward, is going through what you've gone through, how would you want to help someone who doesn't want to go through that, but they're on the verge of having a difficult relationship, whether it be a boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband or wife?
So I think something that would have helped me is hearing of more people who went through something like this, because I didn't recognize what was happening. Like I had been so cut off from everyone in my life, which is part of emotional abuse. That is part of the pattern there, is that they isolate you from everyone who could provide support or who could point out, hey, this isn't right. By the time I recognized that something wasn't right, it was like it was too late. And I think if I had more exposure to, hey, abuse is not just physical, it can be emotional. Here's what that looks like. Here's what it could sound like. I think if I had been a little more armed with some information, that I maybe could have set some different boundaries. And now I say that myself personally, I am the kind of person who I feel like I went through that and I needed to go through that. Because if I hadn't stayed in that relationship, I wouldn't have my youngest, right? So of course, I feel like I could have gotten out right after I had him. If I could do it all over again, I would have gotten out right after I had him. And I think that would have solved a lot of issues, honestly. But if there is someone out there and you find yourself in a situation that isn't right, you find yourself unable to set boundaries, you find yourself unable to see the people that you would like to see in your life, or your self-confidence is being broken down by your partner, all of these things that aren't healthy, that don't necessarily get talked about a lot. I think that would have helped me recognize it sooner than I actually did. And I didn't recognize it. So I went back to therapy, not because of my relationship. I actually went back to therapy because my grandfather went missing and I was having a lot of just things. It was a very stressful time. And this was 5 years ago. There are still emotions around that. And it's like, I needed to go to therapy to work through some of this. Of course, at that time I was reconnecting with my family because this giant traumatic event brought us kind of back together. And so I was able to reconnect with some family, but also because I went back to therapy, my therapist never said, hey, you're in an abusive relationship. She did not name that for me. What she did was point me to resources. And she would say, look, here's this information about good relationships and bad relationships. I just want you to review it and we can talk about it. Look, here's this information about setting boundaries. I just want you to review it and we can talk about it. And she would give me, something to read. She would point me to a website. She would do all of these things that was just like, we're talking about all of the stuff with your grandfather. We're talking about all this stuff with your family. We're talking about all of this stuff with work. Because at that point, she was wonderful. I love her so much. It was the best second experience with therapy I could have had. And because she never said you're in an abusive relationship, because I think sometimes someone saying you're in this can make you just like gut reaction deny it, right? No, not me. No, absolutely not. That's not me. So because she let me realize it myself, or she helped me realize it myself. And then once I was like, oh shit, hey, I think I'm in an abusive relationship. She's like, finally. and we talked through it some more. So I think just having the information hopefully would help someone else recognize that they're in something that is unhealthy. And then also, if you are already in something that is unhealthy, it'll help you figure out how to get out of it and how to get out of it safely.